Okay, we're going to go on with the letter N. I'm going to bring this in just a little bit. Not. It doesn't want to. I'm sorry, it doesn't want to come closer. Doesn't want to zoom. Okay, so N, there are two N's, and one is the round N, which is pretty much like the H that Brecken taught you, only you're going to do your entrance down here. And this one is going to have the bird's beak top and make your little, I don't know what you call that, little round part. And then about halfway down, your pin at a 30-degree angle and just bring it around. And that's the round N. Like Brecken said, you have to be careful when you've got N's and H's in the same word or the same text, because sometimes the H will read like an N. Excuse me. Now this is the N that I prefer. Oh, that's going to be my pen. You put your pen at probably about a 50-degree angle, a little steeper anyway, because see, here's your 45. So you're going to go a little steeper and just come down and pierce that bottom of the square. And then you change your pen to a 45-degree angle and start here and go around and down to the other corner. And then you do the steep angle again, starting at the top and coming down. That wasn't very straight. You want these two vertical lines to be strokes to be narrower than the one that comes across. If they're the same width, it just makes it look chunky.
The round N wasn't actually in the historic Uncial, but Johnston liked it, so he taught it. It wasn't introduced until half Uncial.
Okay, the O, we've already done half of the O, so this shouldn't be too hard. Starting like the E and the G and the C and coming to the left and going around until your pen is thin. And you can see how it kind of bisects that square. You're at a 30-degree pin angle. And I always check, I always try to, when I'm doing practice with the squares, here's your 30-degree pin angle going across two squares. And then you're going to come up and touch the top and go over and bulge the next side and around. Here's your thinnest parts right through there, your thickest parts through there. Do a couple of those. Sometimes if you, when you're doing that second stroke, if you look at your first stroke, while you're doing that, it kind of helps you to mirror. I kind of look at it out of the corner of my eye as I'm doing that second stroke. All right, P. Entrance stroke, coming straight down, going down below the line about a square. If you want to make that a little bird's beak, that works too. Then your branching is about halfway down the first square, and you're going to bring it all the way around and stop about there. Then you come back into your stem, 30-degree pen angle still, and bring a stroke that way. Now on Sheila's exemplar, she doesn't come quite to the bottom. And so I would say that's perfectly acceptable. Let's try it. She does hers more about like that. I'm not sure why, but I like the look of that. It's a little less round looking. Q. There are 3 different Qs. The first one that we're going to do is like a backwards P. And that's the one that Annie Sakali uses, and Jacqueline Savarin also uses it. And there's that same first stroke. O, E, G, C, E. Yeah, E, I said that already. Then you come back up and do the top like a C. Annie Sakali brings hers in here, so you have a little fine line. Jacqueline Savarin just brings hers down and stops. So when you do Annie Sakali's, you get this little line like that. Then there are 2 round Qs. And the first one, you're basically just doing an O. And then you're going to bring this tail from the thinnest part. Make sure that this stroke of the tail is pretty straight. Actually, I probably curved that a little too much from the entrance. But you certainly don't want it to go like this. Think straight, and the pen will help you make the curve. The next Q, I've never used it, but since I've been practicing this, I've become quite fond of it. So I'm going to probably use it more now. So your first stroke, same as we've done for so many letters. Then the second stroke, you start the same, and then when you get about here, you're going to bypass this first stroke. Actually, on Sheila, she brings it clear around this way and then goes down. Let's try that again. Okay, first stroke. That's better. She closes hers off. I also have done it not closed off, and it looks quite pretty, but it's a real, there's a real fine area.
Jane, does the left, that bottom part of the Q, does it go all the way to the left? So it should line up with the, yeah, that edge.
Actually, yes, on Sheila's, it's just barely slightly shorter than coming straight down from the 2 round sides. Does that make sense? You're going to be a little bit shorter here than here.
But you basically want to stay balanced,
but
or
not a
don't
lot,
go off the side.
Right. It's not a lot shorter, but it is within that. Okay, we're going to move on to R. I like to do the bird's beak top on mine most of the time. And so I will do the sharp point first, come down just below, and then come back and do your little rounded part. Then you come in like you do for a B, this is not going to come clear out to the fourth square. Actually, it might, because I did this in further than I should have. But then it's going to come down to the third square and out. Let's try that again and do it here. One thing with any of these that come below or go up higher, the ascenders or descenders, your K, your L, your F, your R, it is possible to do them the same X height and not have them be ascenders and descenders, and you're still doing uncial. Okay, now the really fun letter. And I printed mine last night. I don't remember what we sent you. Does it have these little these squares with the, okay, that's what those are for, is for the S. I'm guessing you figured that out already. So I'm going to start up here. Here's my 30-degree pen angle. I'm going to start and I'm going to go inside that top circle, and then I'm going to cross about midpoint, and I'm going to go inside that other circle, the bottom circle. And then I'm staying inside. That's just kind of to help you get a feel. If you've never done uncial, that helps you get a feel for what has to happen. S is such a tricky letter. One thing I've noticed as I've practiced is this first stroke has to be kind of flat in the middle, kind of, yeah, more flat than slanty. You don't want this. See how this is more flat? And the other thing is it doesn't come clear to the edges. It's not as wide as a full square. I have to break mine down by these squares for learning, because it just helps me to visualize, okay, this one is not 4 squares wide, this one is. Then your second stroke is the bottom, and again, 30-degree pen angle, and you're going to be just outside of where your top stroke kind of begins, and bring it across. And again, it's pretty flat. I have to think flat. If I don't, I start doing this. And so think pretty flat, and then you go up to the top, and again, think pretty flat and bring it over to the side. Oh, that was a terrible S.
And the top is straight?
I say think straight because you just don't want it to start doing this. You really don't want an S that looks like this. If you think to yourself, at least for me, if I think straight and pull it across, then it has a little bit of curve, but not so much. Just how I do it. Okay, T. With the T, you're going to start with your crossbar. Well, actually, no. Sheila doesn't, but I like to, so I know how wide my letter's going to be. And then pretty straight T. Sheila's just curves a little bit like that. Jacqueline Savarin does hers and brings it more like this. And let me look at hers. She does her top bar first. Jacqueline Savarin does. Annie Sakali does her second, and so does Sheila. So then that would be making sure you know where your downstroke needs to be, and then doing your. Now notice, if you keep your pen angle at the same 30-degree angle, when you come down, it's a heavier, thicker line than when you go straight across. That's what makes it so pretty. The curvy T, what do we call that? The curvy T.
The round.
The round T.
Mhm.
I start with that same first stroke that is the round letters, and then you do a crossbar. Now, this T, I would say only use in the beginning of a word, because if you use it in the middle of the text, it reads like a C. So that's why it's important to have different options of a T, because you never want to put that in the middle of a word. It just does not read well. But it can be really beautiful for the beginning of a word. And you don't want to get it too goofy, but maybe you do on some things. Maybe you want it to be a little more, if you were writing a name on a bookmark and their name was Teresa, you might want to do a fancy T like that and then do your other letters. Just be really careful.
And that T, although we all think it's like iconically uncial, it wasn't used until half uncial. But Lloyd Reynolds liked that T, so he taught it with uncial, and that's why we all think it's an uncial T. And Sheila says she'll sometimes use it at the beginning of a word, rarely in the middle of a word, and never at the end of a word.
Okay, U. The uncial U starts here with a 30-degree pen angle, come in just a little bit, and then go down and around like your round shape that we've been doing. Make sure this is a pretty flat, that one I did was still a 30-degree angle. I sometimes do it even flatter because sometimes I don't like that serif. Then you're going to come and do a straight stroke down, and you can do a slight exit stroke. You can make this a little bit of a bird's beak if you want. I don't always. Sometimes most times I think I leave it plain. But I sometimes really flatten my pen angle for that first stroke, just so it isn't real obnoxious. Sometimes you can do something like that if it's in the beginning of a word. Okay, V. I have seen, now Jacqueline Savarin does a V like the Roman V that Sheila does. And so 45-degree pen angle for these slanted letters. And the V comes down to about the midpoint. And then you change to a 30-degree pen angle and bring it around and down. Although I know my pen angle was at a 30-degree, Sheila's stroke right here is way thinner than that. So I wonder if she starts at a 30 and twists her pen, because hers is way more delicate right there, and it's beautiful. I'm going to try that again. Yeah, see, I turned my pen a little bit, and it's prettier, thinner there. I also think maybe you don't go clear to the middle. I think you've got to be to the left side of that middle because it's making it lopsided. Let's try it again and bring it down. Can you see how that's just got a little bit more space there? That's better. So stay to the left side of the middle. Then the other V is a rounded V. And so you do a rounded entrance stroke, a rounded exit stroke. And then you do the same 30-degree. Now this first stroke is 45 degrees. Remember we said all the diagonals are 45 degrees, the A. And then these V, W, Y, they're all 45 degrees. But it just has a more rounded bottom, a little bit more rounded at the top. Oh, well, before we move on, let's do W. W is one I struggle with. I'm going to go up here. Now let me see. Okay. We're going to do 45-degree angle, come down to that side of that. Then we're going to go up. We're going to go over a square and up and do the same thing again. So these two lines should be parallel. Then 30-degree pin angle and 30-degree pin angle. Well, that wasn't too bad. I do struggle with W's. So that's the pointy W. And these points can break the line on the bottom and the top, just barely pierce the line. The rounded W is pretty much the same, just round your bottoms. And what I do, if you have either a see-through ruler like this, or I have done a little transparency of a 1/8-inch grid, which I have given to some of you when we had in-person classes, but it works the same if you use your see-through ruler. And you can take, wherever I put it, you can take your exemplar from whoever and put it over so you can see how many squares wide it should be and how far over. Now, see, I drew lines on this so that I could practice it more accurately, but you can see, okay, I want to go over this many. I'm sorry, I have, I guess, a more geometric mind, and I have to have it laid out in the grid so that I can get a feel for how it should be. And then after I've practiced that many times, then I don't need the grid. Okay, W, we did W. Now X, 45-degree pin angle. I'm going to start right here. I'm going to go up and curve and down to the other side and curve and out. It's maybe a little steeper than an A, but not a lot. Jacqueline Savarin starts here with her second stroke and goes up. I hate to do that push and then comes this way. I'm not sure how Sheila does hers because she didn't put arrows on it. but the shape of hers is kind of the same. She has a little more hook there and a little serif there. This is too much hook. Should be more like that one. But she puts the serif on the bottom, so she must go that same direction. The other, sometimes I will do, and I don't know if this is in anybody else's book, but this is what I sometimes do. I don't know how historically accurate that is. This is the other Uncial X. And you start here and you go up and come down kind of the center and stop there. Bring a straight stroke over. Then you're going to start over here and come in back into this so it looks like one stroke, and come out there and then come back. I'm liking that X more and more. Let me see it again. Actually, I think that needs to come a little. Let's try that one more time. That's better. You want to have a nice fin right there. This could come out a little more. Okay, why? The one I generally do is the one that Sheila in her book has as the Roman Y. Only I don't put a serif at the bottom, but then so 45-degree pin angle, and I should have steepened that just a little, and then back to 30 and come back in this way. That's the Y I generally do. On Sheila's, she lists that as the Roman Y, and she puts a little serif on the bottom. Her Y that she does as the Uncial Y comes down like this, and then up like this, and then the tail. And then she pulls it to the side just a little. I've actually never done that Y, but at least you know how to do Sheila's Y. I typically, if I was going to do something similar to that, I probably would, I don't know. That doesn't look good either. Don't do that. Don't do that one. Annie Sakali's Y. Well, we'll do Jacqueline Savarn's first. Hers does the diagonal stroke down, and then this little bit curvy one. And I sometimes do that Y. Annie Sakali's Y does this. Change your pin angle to 30 degrees and then bring it down straight. And I don't know where I have seen it. Maybe it's from the pointed pin Uncial, what we call the UY. That's probably not historical anywhere, but in pointed pin Uncial, which we're going to be doing in February, the Y is like that. Now Z. Z, you start with a 30-degree pin angle, kind of slide into the stroke just a little bit so that you get a little tiny thin part right there. And then change your pen angle to 0 and bring it down here. Then change it back to 30 and bring it across. And then you can, the thing is, and I haven't mastered it yet, these are pretty straight. And even though Sheila's are straight, they don't look straight. But I'm afraid if I do too much of not straight, they're gonna look wonky. Well, that was a little better. You want just a little life in them, which this gives. Having just, can you see just that little tiny bit of a curve as opposed to this one that's so straight? Like I say, I haven't mastered it yet, but that gives it a little more life. You for doing most uncial, you just don't want this. Although that doesn't look so bad, but if you're doing a block of uncial, you wouldn't want that. That's a better Z with just a little slight curve to the top and bottom stroke. Now we wanted to show you, we have just a few minutes. I just wanted to show you a couple of things with a variation of Liz's that I really like. So you can see, and I'm hoping that you printed out this as a handout, how there is the wide stroke and then the narrow stroke. And if you use an automatic pen, which is this kind of a pen, you can usually do those thin strokes. Or if you're using a Pilot parallel pen, you can do those thin strokes with the same pen. With a C2 or with the Mitchell, it's a little harder to get those fine lines. And so here's what I do. I put the pointed nib on the other end of my C2. And then I can do the stroke with that one. And then I can just turn over the pen and finish it with the pointed nib. I typically like this is a little better done, more chunky. So if I was going to use a C2, I would probably do it almost 1/4 of an inch. Maybe you could go a little bit taller. But look how much cuter it looks chunky. So if you're going to do 1/2 inch letters, you want to use a bigger nib. I can't think if there was anything else I needed to. If you've got the handout, I think you can figure it out. The tricky part is if you're writing a word and you want to do this lettering, you either have to stop on each one or you have to know the letters well enough that you can write a word without stopping and turning each hand. And now see the J, you can do pretty much with the pen. The A needs a pointed pen thing. The N, and then the E, so then I would go back and do all of them. But you have to know your letters and know what you're doing. The other thing I was going to show you on Uncial is how I sometimes do just a plain uncial, like the letter C, any of the round letters. I will split just a little bit like that. That makes it a little fancier. The E, I do the same way. And the F can do that. Oh no, not the F. The F can't do that. I lied. The G. You can also do the S that way. It just gives it a little more interest on those round letters. Okay, any questions? Uncial is really a fun hand. I love it. I love that you can put it with so many different other styles of lettering, and it just makes a good contrast. I love that you can do a block of text with little lines in between I like the chunky, I like the pointed pen, and so it's really a versatile style of lettering.
Jane, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I'm just wondering, like, spacing when you're writing the letters next to each other and not just in like the grid. Like, can you do just a couple of more words just to get a better idea?
Just on the paper. Let's see, this paper is bleeding terribly with this ink. I think it's kind of like any other hand. Once you do it, and when you practice, practice with words. Let's see which way.
So they're you usually put them fairly close together.
I
then.
usually put them pretty close together. One thing I read, though, said you don't want them too close because it hinders your legibility, but I think you can do either, and it depends on your text, what you're doing. If you don't like what you read far apart, then close together, then try them a little farther apart and see what you have to give it space to read. But yeah, typically I write them.
Thank you.
We were going to talk about the bookmarks a little bit.
Yep, I have one ready.
And I just was going to show you a couple of things. When I have done bookmarks, like at the Renaissance Fair, I made this little thing just with the plastic, and then I put it over the bookmark, and I can have my lines in a really quick. Of course, if you're doing it at home, you don't need to do that. That's just for a quick thing. But I have that, and then I also have an envelope. When I've had to address envelopes, a lot of them, I will just cut, and this is like 2 pieces of cardstock stuck together. And then I can make the lines really fast on the envelope and then do the lettering. Those are just some helpful things that I've done that if you're doing a lot of them, it's really the line envelopes. And so that little template thing just so much easier. Kathy?
Yeah, Jane, why don't you use your light? Don't you use your light box?
Well, I do, but sometimes the envelopes I have aren't see-through. You know, like
Oh.
I have some
Yeah.
dark, if you do darker envelopes, I have some that I did
Yeah.
that they just couldn't see through. So if you can, yes, I do. I use my light box, but if I can't, then that's what I do is have a little template so that if you're doing a lot of them and you need to move quickly, then it helps to have a template.
Is it okay if
Yeah,
I show some of the bookmarks that we've gotten so far for our outreach project to the care home?
Let me find you,
So people can
Jan.
see if I got them yet or what they look like, so you can get an idea if you haven't done yours yet.
I will spotlight Jan so you can all see. Okay.
Let's see.
How cute.
You guys were all so fast.
I haven't done mine yet. Those are awesome.
Those are gorgeous.
Yeah, and if you haven't done them
Wonderful.
yet, try to get them to me so I thought the lull between Christmas and Valentine's would be a nice time for them to have something. So that's all of them so far, but I have a lot of people still mailing them in. And some of them are laminated and some of them aren't. I don't laminate mine because I don't have a laminator, but Kathy did the same thing quite a number of times because I think she wasn't sure which one she wanted to send. So she sent Kathleen quite a few times, but they're all beautiful.
Do you give us the names that need to be done?
Yes.
I see. I'll need to get with you later because I've never heard of this, but I'm kind of slow.
Liz sent out a
Oh,
email.
I send out an email. You don't read your emails, Kathy.
Read your email.
I'll go back and look.
Can I just say something while this is showing? Somebody asked how to know if they had paid their dues. If you have a question, just email me. I will let you know, but I will have that all up on the website in the next little while, and I'll send out an email letting you know. And I will send everybody the password. If you don't hear from me and you don't get a password, you're probably not there, but I'll let you know.